Returning to our breaking coverage of Flight 521, Emirates Airlines flight from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai that has crash landed just after noon today at the Dubai International Airport. These dramatic images, first and exclusive here on India Today, that have been shared by eyewitnesses at the Dubai airport, showing the dramatic moment when the aircraft landed and a part of it exploded, forcing the aircraft to apparently collapse on its side. There you can see the Boeing 777 Flight 521 with about 300 passengers coming in from Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala to Dubai, a routine sector for the Emirates Airline, crash landing in that particular area. We understand that at least 6 people have been injured, but mercifully no casualties on this particular mishap. Let's go straight across to India Today's Revati Rajivan. We also have Gaurav Sawant with us. We'll be going to him in just a moment on these dramatic images. Revati, what more can you tell us about this flight? Emirates Flight 521 is a very popular flight between Thiruvananthapuram and Dubai. Lakhs of people take this flight every single week.
Well, yes, we've so the number of people on board as well, at least 50 people on board. The airport authorities tell us, including crew members and passengers, there are 300 on board. Well, we wait for an official confirmation from the airport director on this, and the primary report suggests that all the passengers and crew members have been rescued, and some of them have suffered injuries. Some children are suffering breathing problems because of the smoke that came out of the fire that came from the engine of the flight, according to reports that we're getting from the authorities. The main point is that all of the passengers have been rescued because about 300 people on board, and the passengers. The reports from the authorities also show that there was nothing unusual in the flight, as reported from passengers who travelled regularly. But it was towards the end of the journey when the flight was about to land that this particular mishap took place. But fortunately, all of them have been rescued.
Absolutely. Are the Dubai authorities in touch with the families at this point of time, Revati? Do we know if, where are the families seeking information from at this point of time? This is going to be an extremely anxious time. I'm sure the families must be already in touch with their loved ones in Dubai who've had the horrific experience of being part of this crash landing on Flight 521. But do we know where they're getting their information from at this point?
Well, at this point, the Trivandrum airport authorities are confirming the basic details and getting primary information about the passengers' safety from Dubai airport authorities, and have not yet given details on the passengers and whether families have been contacting them. In a while, we expect that as well from the Trivandrum airport authorities.
All right, we've got Harshvardhan also with us, an aviation expert who's with us on. Okay, we've lost that line. We'll go back to Harshvardhan in just a bit. We're getting as many aviation experts as we possibly can to give you a sense of what may have happened. Smita Sharma is with me live. I want to go across to her. Smita, do we know if the Indian embassy in Dubai has kicked into action right now? Many of those on board will be obviously Indian passengers. What more do we know?
Yes, in fact, embassy officials are getting in touch with the Emirates as well as the passengers officials being deputed to be at the airport itself. This is, of course, the Boeing 777 aircraft, which had departed at 19 minutes past 10 this morning from Trivandrum, and it was supposed to land at 50 minutes past 12 o'clock at the Dubai International Airport when this crash landing took place. There were 275 passengers along with crew members. Initial reports suggested that some 6 people had suffered injuries. We do not know the nature of the injuries, whether they are minor or major. But also that, there's expected to be a 4-hour delay now as far as a network delay. In fact,
okay, we've got a bad phone line apparently there with our correspondent. We'll try and re-establish that. But the Indian High Commission, the Indian Embassy, I beg your pardon, in Dubai has kicked into action. They're trying to get more information about those passengers right there. at least 300 passengers, most of them from India, are currently on board that aircraft. All of them have been saved. No casualties on board that particular aircraft at this point of time. They've all been evacuated safely. Some of them are already in touch with their families. An investigation is continuing at this point of time. Harshvardhan, aviation experts with us on the phone line. I want to get an aviation expert's view in on this. Sir, what are you making, even in these early hours, what are you making of what has happened? Very, very scarce visual evidence of what may have happened. Some kind of an emergency landing, a big fireball of smoke in the aircraft collapsing on its side, sir.
Well, I think it has yet to be ascertained what could be the causes, but apparently it's a very serious issue and it could have resulted into a major disaster. Luckily, people have been saved. And the basic issue is that it looks like there is some kind of internal fire which may have resulted into this kind of happening. But, it is a little early to comment on it. I think we have to wait for more details to come in on this particular aspect.
All right, very scary stuff. Harshvardhan, thank you for joining us with your view on this. This is an investigation that is going to continue. This has already hampered flight operations there at Dubai. As you can see, the most dramatic pictures first and exclusive here on India Today, long before anybody else. We've got people on the ground. We've got eyewitnesses speaking to us on the ground and getting us the very latest visual and factual inputs on this story that is bound to affect flights already. This is something that doesn't happen very often. Emirates, proven airline, the Boeing's 777 aircraft, a very proven aircraft, qualified crew, good weather, but any of a number of hundreds of things can possibly take place in the air. And by their very nature, the aviation industry is a complex one. Commercial flight is complicated, but even more complicated than that. And I want to bring in Gaurav to answer this question, is the investigation into what may have happened. Gaurav, very dramatic images that our reporters and eyewitnesses are getting in from the Dubai International Airport at this point of time, but it's going to be an extremely complicated task precisely figuring what may have happened, Gaurav.
Shiv, once the aviation disaster investigation team question the pilot, the air traffic control, go through what happened, they should be able to have a clearer picture. Fortunately, everyone survived, so it'll be easier to know what went wrong. And something that went wrong, they were able to detect something was happening. They were close to an airport because they came in for an emergency landing. It's just that perhaps there was something wrong with the landing gear, is what one of the aviation experts was telling me, because they went in for a crash landing. Does this indicate that the landing gear wasn't operational? It did not deploy effectively? Was that the reason? We will know shortly. But this huge ball of fire is a cause for concern, because as soon as the aircraft came into land, Shiv, you see there was a sudden explosion, a ball of fire, and then one of the wings, it appears to just come away.
Yes,
so
yes.
that would be very interesting for investigators to find out what exactly went wrong on board this flight.
And the mind boggles, doesn't it, Gaurav? We talk about flight, we talk about taking flights like these all the time. People in their thousands, if not lakhs, every week, think nothing of taking flights like these. And accidents like these come as a reminder of just how dangerous flying can actually be. Commercial flight is actually hugely safe. The statistics, of course, prove that commercial flying is very, very safe. Accidents and mishaps of this kind are exponentially rare. They're negligible. They don't really happen compared to the number of flying hours clocked by qualified airlines like Emirates. The route between Thiruvananthapuram and Dubai is a very, very busy route. Millions of Keralites live in the Gulf. This is a flight that they take very often. Flight 521 is a very, very popular flight. You and I have been on this sector as well, Gaurav. It's not a very long flight. Nobody would have expected something like this to happen. Once again, putting the spotlight on how any number of things can actually go wrong and how close a call it can actually be for regular flyers, Gaurav.
That indeed appears to be the case. This is a short-haul flight, just a couple of hours, 3 hours plus from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai. It's not even one of those long-haul transatlantic flights, but What went wrong here? Investigations will certainly reveal. But what is extremely interesting is the fact that the pilot, they were able to detect something and very close to the airport. They've managed to get the aircraft very close, to the airport, to the runway. And perhaps one of the aviation experts was mentioning they must have detected that they're unable to deploy their landing gear effectively. That's why they called in for emergency services. And that is why everyone was on standby. There were also some amateurs taking videos of what was happening. And this is one such amateur video that we are putting out. At the runway, the aircraft came in, it landed, people were evacuated, and suddenly there was a loud explosion. And in all of this, Shiv, people, lives were saved, 270 plus people on board this aircraft, and they all, miraculously, they all survived most unhurt.
Very, very, very concerning situation at this point of time. All right, we have a senior journalist, Sanir Siddiqui, joining us from Dubai for more on this developing story. Mr. Siddiqui, thanks for speaking to India today. What more can you tell us? We've got all of these very dramatic images playing out on our screen for our viewers at this point of time. Do we have a sense, Mr. Siddiqui, of what really happened? Mr. Siddiqui?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Okay, we've got an audio problem. I'm going to ask our producers to check with our phone audio with our guests at this point of time. We're having a bit of a technical difficulty, but we'll try and fix that as soon as we can. Take a very close look at these pictures. You're looking at them only here on India Today. Pictures that depict apparently the moment when a fireball exploded on the right side of the aircraft, sending the wing flying and making it actually collapse on its side. Take a very close look at those pictures, because that is the most dramatic possible visual evidence of what actually happened. We understand that there may be other cameras that may have captured what happened at the Dubai airport, but this is an amateur video that's already going viral. First here on India Today, we've been able to see it. We're getting calls from our viewers as well, giving us their own comments on what may have happened. We're going to try and get in some eyewitnesses to speak in just a moment about what happened. But train your focus to the center of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, because that is the point at which the aircraft landed, and then you see that explosion, a dramatic explosion. The engine that's being fed with fuel on the right-hand side, the Boeing 777 is a twin-engine aircraft. This is just minutes after the aircraft actually landed. That big fireball, you see a wing actually going flying. If you look carefully, you can see a wing going flying, and then the aircraft simply collapses on its side. If I can put this into a two-window for you, you can get a better sense of what really happened. On the left, you'll see this aircraft and this fireball breaking up the aircraft, and then the aircraft simply collapsing on its side. That's what the Dubai airport looks like right now, the big plume of smoke. We've also got images, close up of the aircraft itself, that we're going to put on your screen in just a moment to tell you what the scene actually looks like in perhaps the most dramatic image that we have, which is from up close. This image that we have, that I'm going to put on your screen in just a moment, gives you a sense of where the aircraft is and what it looks like from behind. Here's some close-up images of the aircraft itself. It's still on fire. There are fire tenders right around it. Dramatic mobile video that we've got from the Dubai airport by eyewitnesses who are right there up close. Thick smoke burning up the aircraft at this point of time. We don't know if this aircraft's ever going to be salvaged. That's a big fire that's burning. Thick black smoke emanating from the engine area of the aircraft. All right, Mr. Naqvi of Gulf News, the editor of Gulf News, is with us on the phone line from Dubai. We've got, he's a senior journalist. Mr. Naqvi, any information you're getting from your sources on the ground at the Dubai International Airport about this incident?
See, the information what we know at the moment is that there were 275 passengers on board flight EK521, and all passengers are safe and they were safely evacuated. The passengers haven't come out as yet. We are also waiting for the passengers to come out and speak to them and find out exactly what happened. But the statement which we have got from the airline is that the incident happened at around 12:45 local time, and that there was some kind of accident while landing. We don't have the details. I'm sure the airline will issue a statement later in the day.
Bobby Naqvi, stay with me for a moment. We also have Shanir Siddiqui, a senior journalist who's with us from Dubai and who's tracking this story very closely. Mr. Siddiqui, if you can hear me, can you take us through what information you've been able to gather from your sources on this live developing story? Very disturbing images coming in from the Dubai International Airport. That aircraft is apparently still on fire. Everybody's been evacuated, but Mr. Siddiqui, what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's a very serious accident, but miraculously, it was a God's will that everybody is safe here. It was carrying 275 passengers, including the crew members. And thanks God, all are the safe. And it was the same flight which was in the morning towards the Trivandrum-Dubai at 4:08 a.m. in morning. It was coming back from the Trivandrum to Dubai. And there is no official statement is coming from the airlines regarding the accident. What actually happened in the terms of accident, but the statement is from the airlines and authorities, everybody is safe, and it was a very fast rescue operation there. So thanks God, we can say it was a God's will that everybody is safe, including the passengers and the crew members.
Indeed, mercifully, everybody is safe.
During that, at the time of the rescue operation.
Absolutely. Can you tell us, Mr. Siddiqui, if you can hear me, if you can tell us, are operations continuing at the Dubai International Airport, or have all flights been cancelled and flying stopped at the airport at this point of time?
Hold. Airport services on hold currently to complete this operation. There is no as such emergency situation is declared. Only the services are on hold to complete these operations. After the cleaning, they will resume their services.
The images that we're getting, Mr. Siddiqui, and you may be in a better position to tell us about it.
Yeah.
Appears to show that the aircraft is completely, almost completely destroyed. It's sitting on its side. One of its wings appears to have broken off. There was a big fireball, captured by one of the videos. Very, very dramatic. It's on our screen right now. I don't know if you can see it as well. Has anyone commented on that? The big fireball that took place when the aircraft was on the ground?
See, no, when the rescue operation was completed and everybody was evacuated, after that this happened. So we can say in the images a firewall and this petrol tank was blast and whatever happened, we have to wait for the Emirates official statement regarding the accident, technically where they went wrong.
Sharif Siddiqui and Bobby Naqvi, please continue to stay with us if you can. We've got many more questions. It's a live developing story involving the lives of 275 people, mostly Indians, traveling from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai in this Emirates Flight 521 that has crash landed. Mercifully, everyone is safe, but as you can see, it's a dramatic situation at the airport where the aircraft is on fire and firefighters are around the aircraft trying to put it out. Thick black smoke emanating from that Boeing 777 that has caught fire, and the video on your right, first on India Today, picked up by us and then followed by everyone else, of course, depicting a fireball just as the aircraft landed and the wing of that flight 521 simply blowing off, depicting a very dramatic and possibly crucial piece of evidence over what may have happened as the investigation actually continues. I want to go back to Gaurav. He's got more images. He's got the first information on what may have happened. Over to you, Gaurav. What more do we know?
Shiv, as soon as this plane came in to crash land, and this is the video, one wing and the engine, it just came apart, and this video actually shows you what happened on ground zero at the Dubai International Airport. We'll play this video once again, and here you see the aircraft. It comes in to land, it lists to a side, the engine comes apart. What you also see very clearly is that one wing almost comes apart, and that wing is now dragging the aircraft onto a side. The aircraft turns, and then there's a sudden explosion and fire. So this video actually tells you what happened at the Dubai International Airport at 12:45 local time this morning. The aircraft came in for emergency landing, so there was a problem. The pilot was able to communicate this to the authorities. You had emergency services who had been deployed, but when the aircraft was coming in to land, and just as it landed, there was a major problem with the engine and the starboard side wing. The wing almost comes apart. We'll once again take a look at that video as it plays out here on India Today. Now, within a moment, see, that's where the plane lands. The engine is onto a side, the wing comes apart, the plane lifts to a side, and suddenly everyone is evacuated. That's when 275 people were evacuated, and in a ball of fire, this engine goes up in flames.
Very, very scary video, Gaurav, and I'd like to thank you for pointing that out to us. Very, interesting and important piece of detailing there on those images of this aircraft. I can imagine, our viewers will want more information on precisely what may have happened. As Gaurav was pointing out, it's a complicated affair, and we're trying to put it together in as much clarity as possible based on the few bits of video footage that we have, first and exclusive here on India Today. I'd like to, at the outset, I'd like to say that this is an infinitely easier story to cover today, because mercifully all 275 people on board that aircraft are fine. They are safe. There are some minor injuries that have apparently been reported, but everyone's been evacuated from that flaming aircraft, and they are all being administered treatment and service at the Dubai International Airport and by Emirates itself. This would have been an extremely difficult story to cover if this had been a tragedy that it was very close to being, as Gaurav pointed out. If the aircraft had gone up in flames, if it had been a harder landing, if the entire aircraft had actually broken up, this could have been a calamity of catastrophic proportions. 275 people on board that. It could have easily been one of the worst aviation tragedies. Mercifully, it isn't. Thankfully, the 275 people on board have been rescued. But the harder questions will now need to be asked. What happened to Flight 521? What forced the emergency landing? Was there a structural failure? Was there loss of control? What basically caused a routine flight by a proven airline, a qualified crew, and an excellent aircraft for this to actually happen? Abhishek Sengupta, senior journalist based in Dubai, is on the phone line with us for more information. Abhishek, what can you tell us about what you're hearing about this incident? We've got these dramatic images on our screens right now. What can you tell us, Abhishek?
Shiv, to be very honest, I haven't had a chance to look at the images. It's a story that we just got to know barely about half an hour ago. It's a story that happened around 12:45 local time. It appears to be a crash landing because of a failure of the landing gear. Like you said, I just overheard you said that it is a proven aircraft. It's the world's biggest carrier, and it happened at one of the world's busiest airport, and that is why it's such a significant story. And thankfully, all 275 people have been evacuated and rescued right now. They are safe at this point in time. There were no injuries reported, even though we at this point in time are awaiting official confirmation from Emirates. As of now, all they've said is that there has been an incident, and of course there will be further investigation why it happened, because it's a routine flight. It's one of the busiest sectors. Kerala is home to, a majority of Indian expatriates living in this part of the world. So, yeah, that is all we've got at this point in time. The news is everyone is safe. But at this point in time, the airport is closed. Many of the flights have been diverted to the nearby Maktoum International Airport, which is further down, close to Jebel Ali, which is on the border of Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Abhishek Sengupta, appreciate you joining us with those details from Dubai. We're going to get more eyewitness accounts, families of the people who've had this terrifying close call on this flight EK521 from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai that has crash landed a short while ago. Breaking coverage continues after this very short break right here on India Today. We're leaving you with these pictures. We're back in just a moment.
A major tragedy has been averted as Emirates plane travelling from India crash landed at the Dubai airport. After crash landing, an explosion erupted and smoke started emanating from the plane. Emirates has confirmed that flight EK521 travelling from Thiruvananthapuram International Airport was involved in an accident at the Dubai International Airport. There were 275 passengers and crew on board. The Boeing 777 aircraft departed at 10:19 a.m. from the Thiruvananthapuram International Airport and was scheduled to land at 12:50 p.m. at the Dubai International Airport. No casualties have fortunately been reported so far. But you can see how the entire plane really is engulfed in smoke over there. At least that's what the visuals are suggesting that have come in from the airport in Dubai. Now this flight crash landed. As of now, there is no report of any casualty. It appears that all 275 persons on board, which included the crew as well, are safe. They were all asked to exit immediately after that flight made a crash landing at the Dubai International Airport. This flight took off from Thiruvananthapuram this morning, was supposed to land at 12:50 at the Dubai International Airport. And this is when the incident took place. Now, what we understand from the Emirates spokesperson is that there is now a delay in the rest of the flights, a delay of about 4 hours is what we understand. These are the visuals that have come in, which show smoke billowing out of the aircraft after EK521 traveling from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai made a crash landing, and it has now been confirmed that it was involved in an accident at the Dubai International Airport. Thankfully, all 275 passengers and crew members on board are reportedly safe. Now, this could have been a major tragedy which was averted as Emirates plane travelling from India crash landed at the Dubai airport. After crash landing is when an explosion was heard. The entire aircraft at this point, as you can see, is engulfed in fire with smoke billowing out of the aircraft. Shiv Arur is now joining us with the very latest. Shiv, first of all, help us understand what exactly happened once the flight landed. We understand it was a crash landing. That is when this explosion was heard.
Very, very mysterious, Maha, at this point of time. No conclusive proof, or suggestions on precisely what happened or what caused that fireball. The aviation experts that we've been speaking to say that anything is possible in an emergency landing. There could have been some kind of a structural failure, but why that fireball, what that fireball came from is not known at this point of time. Clearly, it was one of the engines that has exploded because in some of the other pictures that you can see more clearly, the aircraft is actually tilted to one side. On its right-hand side, one of its wings is completely broken off. So at this point of time, all we really know is that once the aircraft landed, this explosion took place, sending the aircraft tilting onto its side. As you can see in the pictures that are on our screen right now from just a short while ago, the aircraft is billowing very, very thick black smoke. We don't know if the fire tenders and the crash tenders on site have been able to completely put out that fire.
All right. Shiv, I'll request you to hold on to your thoughts there. We are joined by Abhishek Sen Gupta. He's a senior journalist joining us from Dubai with more details. Abhishek, if you can take us through what exactly is happening at the moment. Also, what about the passengers and the crew members? We understand that they were asked to exit immediately, but have there been any injuries perhaps?
The only thing I can confirm at this stage in time is that there have been no injuries. All 275 members on board have been, they are safe. They were safely evacuated. I think it was a problem, as it appears at this point in time, of landing gears failing at the time of touchdown.
Okay.
And because of which the airport has been temporarily shut. Flights have been diverted. Of course, there have been delays because of this. But then there is no official confirmation yet. We are still awaiting an official confirmation from the airport authorities here, Emirates, which is, of course, one of the world's largest carriers.
Yes.
Flying a routine flight from Trivandrum, which is, of course, a very, very busy sector, considering so many Indian expatriates from that state live here.
Abhishek, has there been no word from Emirates as well? Because a lot of people would be concerned about their loved ones who would be traveling by EK 521.
That is right, but Emirates has not yet come out with a comment, an official comment as yet. Their website is still, at least 10 minutes ago when I was trying to access, I couldn't do so because the website was down, and you can imagine why. So I think there's still some time before we, get to hear the actual story. So it's all conjectures at this point in time, but the underlying story is that people are safe. There have been no casualties or injuries.
All right. Abhishek, I'd request you to stay on with us a bit. Let me connect with our correspondent from Kerala, Revati Rajiva, and getting us more information. Revati, has anybody been able to, any of the relatives, if you're in touch with them, been able to call anybody traveling by this aircraft and what they had to tell them?
Well, so far the information that we've received is not got any details regarding the relatives, but one most important information for the passengers and the relatives would be that the authorities will be soon opening a customer assistance line and will also share details soon. So that is one important information for the passengers and the relatives. And also tell us that the Emirates do not have any further information on what may have caused this particular accident. And the priority remains at the moment is to rescue the passengers and crew involved to ensure that they are safe. And we're told that the passengers have been moved to a building nearby, a lodge sort of a place. And we're also told that the Emirates is expecting a 4-hour network-wide delay. So more information will be available on the website and social media channels is what our sources are telling us.
Revati, is there any word from the Thiruvananthapuram International Airport when the flight took off? Was everything checked? Was everything in place? What are they saying?
Well, reports that we received locally is that there was nothing unusual in the flight, nothing unusual even during the journey as such. It was just before the plane landed that something of the sort, even get flew happening. I mean, during the journey or when the flight took off, nothing of the sort, no clue was actually received, is the local reports that we are receiving. But an official statement from the Trivandrum International Airport is yet to be released. Only then will we know the official statements regarding the incident.
All right, let me go back to Shiv to get a perspective on how this accident could have happened. Now, Shiv, at this point, yes, it is only conjecture that we can indulge in, but from the visuals that are emerging of smoke billowing out from the aircraft, is there a sense that experts are, getting as to how this accident could perhaps have happened?
Possibly some kind of a structural failure, Maha. Like you rightly pointed out, very, very complicated until, air accident investigators actually get a chance to study the aircraft, study the mechanical parts, many of which, as you know, will already have been destroyed in this fire. The landing gear, the fuselage of the aircraft, the engines themselves, the transmission systems, and, the millions of other parts that, go into making an aircraft actually flight-worthy. Was there some kind of maintenance issue involved? Was there an upkeep issue involved? Because, on all other criteria, this couldn't have been a more routine flight. Flight EK 521 from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai is a flight that takes place every single day. It's a flight that carries lakhs of passengers every week. As you know, the Gulf has, millions of people flying from Kerala. And who live and work there. So this is a very busy and routine flight that takes place. Emirates is a proven airline. This happens to actually be, I want to alert our viewers to this interesting piece of information, Maha. Flight 521's crash landing in Dubai happens to be the first ever mishap of its kind for Emirates Airlines, one of the safest airlines in
Yes,
the world.
yes.
So that information is very, very important. It's never had an accident like this one. The Boeing 777-300 is a proven aircraft and airliner in service with many, many airlines around the world. It's one of the most popular passenger jets for short-haul flights of this kind. It was a temperate, mild day. Weather was good. Everything was fine. So you've got a safe aircraft. You've got a safe airline with a highly qualified crew. You've got the Dubai airport, which is run by very, very qualified staff. Happens to be one of the busiest airports in the world. So all the criteria, tick the boxes in terms of a very routine flight that you don't need to worry about. But any number of things can take place in aviation, as you know, Maha. Millions of parts go into an aircraft. Thousands of moving machines, make an aircraft fly. Many things can actually happen in the air. It could have been a combination of factors as well. The really difficult part, thankfully, this is an easy story to cover, mercifully, because everyone is safe.
Absolutely.
All the people have been evacuated. It could have been a colossal tragedy, including the loss of life, perhaps. But we can thank our stars that nobody is even seriously hurt in this particular mishap. But the real work is actually going to start now. The very complicated task of finding out what happened to Flight 521.
In fact, Shiv, that was the point I wanted to come to. The amount of smoke that is billowing out from the front of the aircraft, if I'm getting it correctly, from the visuals, suggests that it could have been a major, major tragedy. The fact that it was a narrow escape for all the passengers is something that Emirates and the Dubai International Airport should perhaps be credited with.
Absolutely. I think it's very important what you say. We should credit the pilots, the staff on board, and the Dubai airport personnel themselves, that this has been a contained accident. It could have been far, far worse. Of course, first on that list will be the crew flying that aircraft itself. You're absolutely right, Maha. An aircraft like the Boeing 777, which carries millions of gallons of fuel, even when it lands, would have been carrying a huge amount of fuel. It's basically like a flying missile. It's a flying bomb. Any aircraft is basically a flying bomb simply by virtue of the amount of fuel it's actually carrying. So if there is a fire on board, and if there is a mishap of this kind, a catastrophe is just seconds away because of the amount of fuel inside that aircraft. Even with onboard fire suppression systems, for something to spark a massive explosion is very simple. The fact that the engine blew up like that in that dramatic video that we have is a testimony to that. The smoke that you pointed out from the the side and the front area of that aircraft is again testimony to how much inflammable material there is on an aircraft anyway. So it's going to be extremely difficult. One of the ironies of air accident investigations, Maha, as you know, is that much of the evidence, much of what can tell you what caused an accident has already been destroyed in the fire. So many of the mechanical items, the nuts and bolts, the hydraulic systems, the other metallic subsystems that go into making an aircraft would have already been melted or destroyed in this fire. So you can only imagine how complicated it will be for accident investigators to actually get to the bottom of it. These are very early hours yet. What is happening at the Dubai International Airport right now is only the very beginning of what promises to be, sadly, a very complicated task. Emirates will be thanking its stars that, no casualties have been, added to its, absolutely safe, 100% safe reputation so far. But Emirates is going to be extremely disturbed about this actually happening, and that too in Dubai, its own home turf.
Also, Shiv, in a situation like this, there are several evacuation doors or exits in an aircraft. But, considering that there was an explosion, I understand that even the evacuation would have been difficult since not all exit routes would have been accessible to passengers. I mean, I'm just looking at the visuals, I'm just taking a guess.
That's a very good guess, actually, Maha. The fact that many of those exits would have been blocked as a result of the fire and the aircraft collapsing on its side is definitely something that the cabin crew would have taken into account during the actual evacuation. And remember, if one side of the aircraft is on fire, a wing has been broken up, and the whole thing is pretty much on its side, and evacuations are taking place at an awkward angle from the other side, this must have been an extremely difficult operation, because for the cabin crew there are two priorities on board such an aircraft. Absolute priority number one, of course, is the safety of everyone on board, the passengers first, and then the crew. But apart from that, they've also got to be making sure that the passengers and the crew aren't affected in any way during the evacuation process. There have been accidents in the past where fires have engulfed aircraft in such a steady manner that during evacuation processes, things have gone horribly wrong, and people being rescued have died either in the fumes or in the flames. So it's an extremely tricky situation. Cabin crew are, of course, trained to handle situations like these, but who can actually be trained, to be absolutely calm in a situation like this, while rescuing people? It's incredible. We can sit here, we can talk about it till the cows come home, we can, discuss the nitty-gritties of what happens in the air, but imagine what it must have been like, and I want to tell this to all our viewers, to be in an aircraft of this kind. These are flights that you and I could take tomorrow or the next week, Maha. I mean, a flight like this is something nobody even thinks about. We go out, we book a flight, we take the flight. It's not such a big deal. It's not a great investment of time or mind space. These are flights that people take in their millions every single day. And for something like this to happen to people like us, looking at these pictures on Dubai is something that is really, really disturbing. And I think it's a wake-up call in many ways for passengers.
Shiv, for the sake of our viewers, please take us once again through what exactly happened.
This was a flight that took off at 10:17 a.m. from the Thiruvananthapuram International Airport, Maha. It was flight 521 Emirates, which is a daily flight that operates between Thiruvananthapuram and Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. It's always a packed flight because of the number of people usually traveling between them. The millions of people from Kerala live and work, as you know, in the Gulf. So this is a very popular flight. Many of these flights take place per week by Emirates, which is one of actually several airlines that operates on this very very heavy populated sector. There was no information whatsoever about any kind of event in the air, any kind of trouble in the air. It was a routine landing that was supposed to take place at about 12:50. The aircraft apparently effected an emergency landing slightly earlier at about 12:37 p.m. local time in Dubai is when the aircraft landed. The video suggests that there was a fireball immediately after the landing. We don't have a full sequence of what really happened. What we do know is there was a fireball, the aircraft collapsed on its side, and then you have these these disturbing images of this thick black smoke emanating from the aircraft. There are very many materials composed of foam, plastics, carbon composites and other such materials on board that actually would explain this very thick smoke emanating from the aircraft.
All right, Shiv, for the sake of our viewers, let me quickly take them through the emergency numbers that have now been opened up. Dedicated telephone lines are now active for family members to call and inquire about their relatives. In the UAE, AIDS 00211. In the UK, 0044 203 450 8853. In the United States, 0018 1135 02081. These are the emergency numbers. The lines are active now. People can call up and check with Emirates about the well-being of their loved ones who were traveling by EK 521, which met with an accident. 275 people on board, including the crew members, are all safe, is what the Emirates has put out. Their priority at this point is that all the passengers are safe. Gaurav Sawant is now joining us with the very latest. Gaurav, take us through the visuals from what is available at the moment. What does it look like? How could this accident have been caused?
Air crash investigations are currently underway to figure out why this happened. Initial reports seem to indicate that when the aircraft came into land, there was some problem with the landing gear, and that is why it had to crash land. When it came into crash land, and we have some very dramatic images here on India Today. Some of these images have been shot by amateurs at the airport, outside the airport, and one of these show that when the aircraft came into land, it suddenly listed to a side. It was tilting towards the right side, and suddenly there was a loud explosion. As you see in these pictures, this explosion and a huge ball of fire is visible. Now that seems to indicate that when the aircraft came into land, it perhaps landed on its belly, and one of the engines caught fire. That explains, we've been showing these images to some of the aviation experts, and they say that suddenly this huge ball of fire seems to indicate that the fuel line, the aviation turbine fuel, the ATF caught fire, and after that, from the other side, from the port side, emergency evacuation started. So 275 people on board were immediately evacuated, and mercifully no lives lost, thankfully. And then the fire spread from the engine. One wing came apart, and in another image that we will show you shortly, one wing came apart, one engine fell to a side, and that's the time that the fire spread to the main aircraft, and now you see the entire aircraft in flames. What we've now been told is that they'll take about 4.5 hours plus to put out this fire. All flights have been diverted to another airport in Dubai.
Gaurav, do we have any information from the Thiruvananthapuram International Airport when this flight took off? Was it given an all clear? Obviously, at that point, it must have been. That's why it took off. But was there anything that suggested that perhaps things could, things were not all okay in place?
You know, that's a matter of investigation, but currently there was an all okay when the flight took off. There was no problem, and this is a very busy sector. A 2.5 hour long flight from Thiruvananthapuram to Dubai. It's a short haul flight, just across the Arabian Sea.
Yes.
And just when it came into land was where the problem was detected. The pilot called out for emergency services to be brought in. The aircraft came into land a little ahead of schedule. And that is where, when the aircraft came into land, more details are awaited at this stage, Maha, to know what exactly went wrong. Why did it have to go in for crash landing and this belly landing as is initially being said. But another 4 hours, the situation should be clearer.
All right, Gaurav, I'll hold you there. Dr. Saji, who was a passenger in that flight, EK521, is joining us on the phone line now. Sir, first of all, I want to know from you, are all the passengers along your co-passengers on that flight, is everybody safe? Were there any injuries reported during the evacuation?
All the passengers, I heard there are 282 passengers, and the cabin crews and the pilots are all safe, and the authorities rescued them. While evacuation itself, authorities, there were many ambulances rushed to the places, and we all safe. Now they brought us to a place. They are giving now medication to everybody. So there are some here and there of fractures. Some people have some like while running there is some their feet burn and all that. So they are giving all medicine and all that. But all the passengers are safe. The flight is totally done.
So it must have been a difficult time for the passengers as well as for the crew to evacuate everybody. Can you help us understand how that evacuation process was? Was there pandemonium inside? Because we understand that not all exits would have been available for people to evacuate.
Now, our exit, see, we got even in seconds, like in 5 seconds, we have exited from the emergency exit. Okay. Because they announced it because there was smoke inside. When the smoke is spreading inside, they said, okay, escape. So I have 3 daughters and my wife was there. All we 5 are escaped. So like that, we know only our exit, what happened to us, and we are safe. And like when we came to this place, we came to know that all passengers, and we are sitting in front of the co-passengers, so everybody is safe.
That is actually good news. A narrow escape for most people, but a major tragedy being averted there. So many thanks for speaking with India today. So as this eyewitness, the person who was traveling on that flight, tells us that the smoke started filling up inside the aircraft and all the passengers were asked to evacuate from the nearest exit. All passengers on board are safe, as a passenger on the flight himself confirms. However, he says that adequate medication is being given to anybody who is perhaps feeling breathless or may have tripped while they were trying to get out of that flight. We are taking a very quick break. We'll be back with more information. Stay with us.